on, blue collar hustlers. Here lately I've been taking on a variety of different handyman jobs and making some good steady cash on the side. And today I'm going to take you with me on some of those jobs, so let's get to it. Number one was a stove repair call. Lady calls me up and she says, "Backwoods, I have a problem. My stove burner, it's not going off. The light's staying on, the burner's staying on. What do I do?" I said, "Well, you got to unplug it and I'll be there in about 10 minutes to check it out." Really, whenever something like this happens, it's usually a simple fix because chances are there's an infinity switch that's gone bad. Usually they go bad and your burner will not come on or it will not go off, one or the other, and that's the first thing you want to check. So let's go ahead and roll that video. When you got an oven you're using and you turn your knobs on, you're using it, you turn your knobs off, but the light still stays on. The problem is you got an infinity switch bad. Infinity switch is basically your knob, okay? Your outside knob, these pop off. Basically what this is right here, it's what your knob plugs onto. Flip it over to the back, as you can see this one right here, burned up. Pulled it off here, you could instantly see the burn mark that has been fried. Anytime you got a heating element that stays on, it will not go off. The only thing that controls that from going on or off is going to be these infinity switches right here. You got two fasteners that'll typically be right here in the front of it, which is what these two holes on the outside of this is for. Stick those in there and then you plug everything up the way it comes off your stove. And you'll see that they've got line 1, line 2, H1, H2, and P. Or at least on this one, the infinity switches are different depending on the make, model, brand, all that sort of stuff. You can always reference the original when you're pulling the wires off and plug it up to the new part the exact same way it come off. Or whenever you do it, just take something, a little Sharpie, and mark your wires. That way you know where it come from. Get a big brand new infinity switch, stick it in place, your fasteners in place, get a little wire brush or something, clean off all your terminals, make sure they're nice and shiny. Then go ahead and start plugging your terminals back up. H1 to H1, L1 to L1, so on and so forth. Verify that everything's in there nice and tight the way it's supposed to be. No loose wires, no broke terminals, because if these slip off, you're gonna have a problem. Like that one slipped off pretty easy, so we will tighten it back up. It's on there good. And put our knob back on here, screw it back in, cover back down, we plug it back up, start testing it out. Lights on, lights off. Now, this one's fixed. Now, this isn't the first job where I have utilized and tested out these Kobalt flip pliers. Now, these are some pliers that I have yet to review on this channel, but don't worry, that video's coming up soon. I also had several other service repair calls that involve stoves. I basically show up and do some simple tests. Most of the time, they'll say, "Hey, my element's not working," or "My stove burner's not working." I'll go in, I'll pull it out, I'll test it, make sure it's got continuity, and verify if it's good or bad. There has been one or two situations where the element did burn up and I replaced the element. Other times, the little wiring harness and everything that the element plugs into has went bad, and that needs to be replaced. At which time, I did utilize some brand new Kobalt wire strippers that I have yet to review as well. That's also coming up. But then there's been those situations where I'm having to go to the lower half of the oven. Same thing can be said about that. They'll tell me that their oven burners, their heating elements, none of that stuff's working. So the first thing you check is the burners themselves. Make sure the elements are good. Check them for continuity. Got continuity, then you go to the back, you check the wiring harness, the terminals. Something like that is usually the problem. And once again, like I said, I did test out these Kobalt flip pliers, so make sure you stay tuned for that video coming up. And I do get some unusual calls from time to time. This one lady called me up. She's like, "Hey, could you help me out? My door frame on my front door needs to be fixed." I went and looked at it. Basically, the cops kicked it in 2 weeks prior to this, so they were wanting me to kind of fix the frame of it a little bit. That way it would lock a little bit better. So I took it apart, run some screws in it, and tried to hook them up best I could. But the best advice that I could give them is don't do anything that would involve the cops kicking in your door. That would probably help you the best. And then I got a reference call from this lady's neighbor who's like, "Hey, you ever worked on lights and timers? Because I want to put some timers outside of this property here to where the lights will kick on and go off at a certain time." I showed up, installed this here for her, and hooked her up. And then once I done that, it was like instantaneous. She knew she had somebody that would help her out with a few things, and she's like, "Hey, could you come back and look at my light fixture? It's not working right. I'd like to get it fixed." Of course, I pulled the cover off of it. I'm looking at it. Same thing as you do with anything else. You put your electrical meter on it, you test it out. Whenever you work with things as much as I do, then you can look at certain things and understand when something's going on with it or not. So in this situation, I tested out the ballast, took it down, replaced it, put in some new wiring, the whole 9 yards, and I got her fixed right up again. That's all it was just a simple ballast that had went out. While I was there was a few other knickknacks that I knocked out for her. She said whenever she tried to plug her TV cable into the wall that the little plastic thing broke on her. She was talking about the plates. So basically took the channel lock adjustable wrench, Capri tool, Plier wrench, took this apart, put her in a new plate. Then she had a daughter that was renting a place, said that her range hood over top her stove wasn't working, so I ripped that thing out, put her in a brand new one. Also had an exhaust vent in her bathroom that was bad, so I went ahead and replaced the motor on that, along with putting her up a brand new cover. Then I ended up installing a brand new door latch to her screen door, along with a brand new deadbolt to the door that was kicked in on that one client's apartment. This is the kind of stuff, whenever you add up a bunch of small things here and there, and somebody calls you out to fix this sort of stuff, they're going to be paying you every single time that you come out. So it's in their best interest to go ahead and pay you all at one time to do everything. If you explain it to them, chances are they will let you come out and be like, "Listen, while you're here, You do a walkthrough and make sure there's anything else around here that I may or may not need, and let me know about it. And if I can, I will pay you to come back and fix it, or I'll go ahead and pay you to do it right now. There is a land of opportunities out here for anybody who wants to do the handyman hustle on the side. Let me tell you something. There are certain days where I have done these jobs and I make more money in a day's time than I do in the automotive shop in a week. Basically why I've been taking on a ton of these jobs over the last 8 months, and I have been making a killing doing it. And you know what got me into doing this sort of stuff? I've done this sort of stuff for years, but I never really went at it on a full-time basis until I started sitting back and watching the Handyman YouTube channel, and I was like, you know what? This dude's making a killing. And I can fix all the same shit that he's fixing. I can do all the same shit that he's doing. And lo and behold, if you add up a bunch of these jobs and you start getting in with people, that's how you make your money. Get in with the client, the customer, the tenant, the landlord, the neighbor, the cousin, the aunt, the uncle, the daughter, whatever the case may be. Word of mouth travels. Next thing you know, you're out here doing these jobs day in and day out. I'll tell you something, if you got good enough prices and you're talented and skilled enough to make this thing happen, you can make a fortune doing it. Right now, if the supply and demand is there for your skills, you know what you're doing, you have reasonable prices, there's going to be days where you get up and go to work, and at the end of that work day, you're going to have $1,000 in your pocket from little basic repairs.